So this is going to be a tier list of celebrity vanity project movies. As I was putting together this list, I was trying to make rules. The main rule ended up being, for the sake of the bit, there's stuff in here. I know Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things just had that ghost-written book about her grandma that was not well received. But everybody has a book, so we're not doing books. This is also mostly people that are celebrities that are not inherently filmmakers. There's going to be exceptions, but I think that's kind of it. It's just vanity projects. So let's just jump into it. First one up. This is Monsters of California. This is Tom DeLonge from Blink-182's movie that just came out. I watched it assuming the rest of the world was also going to watch it. It wasn't bad enough to be so bad it's good, and also nobody watched it, so kind of just a waste of an afternoon for me. Honestly, I was hoping for a crazier Tom DeLonge, so the fact that nobody watched it, I think it deserves a solid C. It's technically a movie. Like, it has a beginning, middle, end. Moving on. Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox, who are a couple. There's a conversation there. Good Morning, Mourning. YouTube watched it and told me about it, and I learned I didn't need to watch it. Not that I even really know who Machine Gun Kelly is anyway. It's a goofy stoner comedy where Machine Gun Kelly plays the Machine Gun Kelly type, and Megan Fox plays his girlfriend going method, I guess. I think that's worth a C. Well, I guess below average is a D. Let's go worse, because it made a splash where the Tom DeLonge movie didn't. Next one up. This is Our Lord, and then also Jesus. Mel Gibson, Passion of the Christ. Yes, he's a filmmaker. Yes, he's an actor, but this was sort of the last movie he really made before he sort of went off the deep end and really let people know how he feels about other faiths and Rosses, and he doesn't like a very specific type of culture slash group of people, and it's pretty horrific. He hasn't really worked much since then other than these really crappy straight to VOD movies, which is where he deserves to be. He's kind of in filmmaker jail for the rest of his life, and his behavior put him there. Having said that, Passion of the Christ came out. People watched it. They liked it. I still haven't seen it because I don't care. But it did well in the box office, which is pretty astonishing for... There's a pretty thick history of Christian movies just not doing well in the broader outside of, Christianity, because who friggin' cares? But this one broke the rules. It got out and made some money. So there you go. I'm going to give it an A. This next one, I don't know if you can tell by what it is, but this is Kendall Jenner handing a police officer at probably a BLM rally a Pepsi. So this is not a movie. This is the Pepsi campaign where she solved Rossism with a Pepsi. And I'm not putting this on Kendall Jenner because if you're dealing with the Kardashians or the Jenners, you know what you're dealing with. And so I'm putting this on Pepsi. This was Pepsi's attempt to really grab the nuts of society real quick and just let them know that they're holding on. What a catastrophe. I remember seeing it and remember being like, things get so bad they become hilarious. This was like right on that. I wanted to tell everybody how hilarious it was, but I was afraid it was going to look bad on me because it was such a horrible thing. So that's an F. Try to solve Rossism and failed on all counts. So that's what you get. Next one up, the Blue Cat People of Avatar. James Cameron. James Cameron is a filmmaker. I'll give you that. Very influential when I was coming up. I love sci-fi, and he's kind of the boss of that genre, especially in the 80s and 90s. This is the Avatar sequels because he was making movies and then he made Avatar and broke a bunch of records and decided he was just going to spend the next 10 years of all of our lives making more Avatar to the exclusion of everything else. And so are you still a filmmaker if you've made movies consistently and then you've just stopped and instead spent all your time going on incredibly inappropriately deep dives in the ocean and also making Avatar sequels? Bluff called, though. I thought the second one was going to suck. It's done well. It hasn't done as well as the first one. Next one up, Jim Cameron's buddy, George Lucas. Now, George Lucas, I feel like, again, he's a filmmaker, so it's one of those things where with a director, you could say anything they're working on is a vanity project, but George Lucas tends to self-fund his own, and so I think that definitely leans towards vanity projects. I was thinking episode 1 Star Wars, because what a departure from a pretty solid recipe in 4, 5, and 6 episodes. But people were asking for it. They were asking for it until it came out, episode 1. And then there's also the Star Wars Christmas special, which is just a cultural touchstone. This is the other one. This is I don't even know what it's called. It's called the Ewok Adventure, but they changed it. It's like Caravan of something. The Ewoks, the best part of Return of the Jedi, plus no Jedi, plus no Star Wars. Just Ewoks. And I remember multiple times coming across this going, yes, Return of the Jedi is on, and then realizing it's this movie and being like, where's the lightsabers, guys? It's pretty bad. So we're gonna put it next to Machine Gun Kelly because it was pretty horrible. Next up, if you've seen other things on my channel, I feel some kind of way about crowdfunding. I don't need to get into it, but Zack Brath, who I liked Garden State. I love Scrubs. I really wanted Zack Brath to be JD from Scrubs, but he's not. He crowdfunded a movie which was basically a spiritual sequel to Garden State called Wish I Were Here. It was terrible. And so a famous multimillionaire crowdfunded to get his own, by definition, vanity project made after having already made a vanity project, getting funding somewhere else, and then it came out and it was terrible. Come on, dude. I hope when he was dating Florence, she called him out on that, because that was uncool. So, next up, The Idol with The Weeknd. I've done some material on this. Not a fan. I've only seen 2 episodes. It was more than I should have watched. I feel bad for Johnny Depp's kid, because this was an opportunity to get out from under her father's gigantic shadow, and it got her out of the shadow, but she had to bear a lot to do it. This was supposed to be like a feminist manifesto culture piece about the treatment of women in Hollywood from the point of view of a woman. And then the director, showrunner quit. And The Weeknd, a guy, changed it. Gross. Very gross. I'm going to put it at the bottom just because I've had to put this in my head longer than I'm comfortable with. Whew. Okay, moving on. Harry and Meghan, if you've not heard of them, they're British royals. Meghan is California raised. They have a lot to say on their documentary because of their Netflix deal. And by a lot to say, I mean they begrudgingly sit on a couch and it keeps cutting to archival footage that is owned by society and not really by them. And that's it. There's nothing to it. I watched the first 3 episodes. I did material on it. I learned a lot about them as a couple. People have opinions about them as individuals. I can't really say because I haven't been in a room with them, but I'll tell you right now, them as a couple, it's weird, and it is the experience if you feel like you're being lied to with absolutely everything they're saying, but not in a fun way, sort of just in a like, oh man, I'm stuck at the group table at the restaurant kind of way. They're definitely the ones that are like, oh, we're at the group table with you. It's that kind of feeling. So I'm going to give it a D. It's not a scandal. Like the royal family is known for scandals. This is not that, but it's not good. Taylor Swift Eras Tour. It's out now. It's breaking a bunch of records. She's directed her own music videos. She's been in the pop culture conversation for decades now. S tier. Come on. Even if you want to hate on Taylor, which I think she's a much better songwriter than she is public figure, but I also don't follow her publicly. Like, she's crushing it. I would like to see her take her, put her hand in on an actual narrative film. I'd like to see what that would look like, because she's a great storyteller lyrically. So, yeah, crushing it. Argument to be made, if you have all the money and power and influence, can you leverage that to have success in other things? Yes. And she is. So she's either a Disney villain or she's just very good at what she does. Here we go. This movie is called Music. It had Kate Hudson and then this girl in it. And this girl is a regular actress portraying a person on the autistic spectrum disorder. This is Saya's movie. I watched parts of it by accident and it gave me shivers up my spine. Without trying to talk out of school here, Saya seems to have willfully ignored advice and insight and points of view of actual people dealing with autism spectrum disorder, both as practitioners, but also people just living that life. And instead invented, if you've seen that Ben Stiller Tropic Thunder movie, it's like Simple Jack, Blurg. I'm not going to give it an F because it didn't hit culturally enough to deserve an F, but my God. So, and I feel bad for this actress because she's probably never going to work, but I don't know if enough people saw it. Do not watch this movie, Music. It's not, by the way, the character's name is Music, and it's made by Saya. Don't watch it. Just don't watch it, Music was an abomination, and that's the 8 minutes that I was able to stomach. Tommy Wiseau, The Room. Cultural masterpiece. The definition of so bad it's good. I came late to the party. Nothing about it appealed to me. I saw trailers for it when it came out. I think I saw it before James Franco made The Disaster Artist. Tommy Wiseau made an absolutely insane so bad it's good movie that, in the same way Taylor Swift is a cultural institution, this is a cultural institution. So I'm putting him next to Taylor Swift. Opposite reasons, obviously, but I mean, this movie is such an incredible non-movie that it's legendary. Now, Steven Seagal, if you don't know who he is, really big in the 80s and 90s. He was doing like B action movies where he does this sort of like Aikido, like this thing kind of stuff. Lately, he's just gotten fatter and weirder and creepier. And then all of his movies have a doing it scene with a girl who is problematically young, especially in proportion to his self. So I put in A Good Man because I found two of these movies, but this is the one that I remember people telling me about. There's a doing it scene in this movie that he sits in a chair with his clothes on and does it with a inappropriately young person. It's insane. I finally found the footage and I watched it. It's at the end of the movie. The story is ended and she says thank you, and then it happens. I thought it was in the movie. He's sort of the guy who, it's all the cliches of like 80s and 90s action movies. There's a doing it scene in the middle of it at some point. That's sort of his bread and butter. So he's also known kind of now to only wear sunglasses and dye his facial hair. And he's super fat. And a lot of times he doesn't even get out of a chair. Usually there's a ripped martial artist guy who's in his 20s who's carrying the story and fighting all the bad guys, where Steven Seagal just kind of does this. But yeah, A Good Man, but basically just any Steven Seagal movie is, you know, everybody has a Steven Seagal story. I think that's what's so wild is this guy keeps making movies despite his own self. But the fact that he's physically hurting and disfiguring stuntmen, and then also putting young women actors through him, there's a lot to dislike there. But for the sake of just culturally, nobody gives a crap. It has to be a D, right? Here's a sniper movie where he never takes his sunglasses off when he fires the gun. I found this while I was trying to find A Good Man. This is actual dialogue from A Dangerous Man, which I believe is 2009, Steven Seagal. Tell me if you think the writer wrote these lines or if Steven Seagal rewrote the lines for a reason. This is just in the middle of the movie. You don't need context. And I'm going to try to do it in his voice and cadence, but here we go. He says this to a Chinese girl. I believe they're in New York, but it's important that you know that she's Chinese. So this is drug money, unfortunately. And I don't know if you can read Chinese, but it's obviously Chinese drug money. So I'm sure folks are looking for this real hard. And then she says, who are you? I mean, how do you know this? I was in the military for a long time. I was in the Army Special Forces. I had a great career, very colorful. And one day I lost it all. I got accused of something I didn't do, did 6 years hard time, was acquitted of all wrongdoing through DNA evidence, found out I had nothing to do with crime. I was let out recently, and look at me. I'm already in trouble again. I mean, I didn't do a solid read on that. So if you want to pull up, it's on YouTube. The whole movie, A Dangerous Man, is on YouTube. There are so many layers to that quote. Very colorful military career. He offered that up, and then he was accused of a crime, but it was implied that was probably a pretty heinous crime considering the thing that got him exonerated after 6 years was DNA evidence of a crime. And so there's only a few specific kinds of crimes where DNA evidence is really how you get exonerated, and who's acquitted of all wrongdoing, and he's like, but now look at me, I'm already in trouble again, which is to imply he was already in trouble, and so maybe he was. And he also said that where did he say? He said, found out I had nothing to do with that crime. He did other crimes, but that crime, the one that the DNA evidence exonerated him of, he was innocent. So anyway, After Earth. Will Smith brings his son to make a movie that M. Night Shyamalan directed during M. Night Shyamalan's biggest low point in his career. It's terrible. And as a fan of sci-fi, I really liked the premise, but you got to sub out those two leads because playing off each other can't do it. They have no chemistry, which is, profoundly ironic, but also it wasn't good. I thought the spaceship was awesome. An organic spaceship, very cool. But everything about this movie was so bad. John Travolta, Battlefield Earth. John Travolta is a filmmaker. John Travolta is an actor. John Travolta is pretty much not working in Hollywood. He's doing the same kind of goofy, like straight to VOD movies that these other old guys are. Steven Seagal. I wonder if they have a Steven Seagal John Travolta mashup, like team up at this point. I feel like they have to. Battlefield Earth is a very expensive, I believe it was funded by Scientology. It's a Scientology story. I believe it's L. Ron Hubbard's, one of his books. I don't think it's, I don't know if it's the book. I don't know. The point is, it is hard sci-fi and it is trash. And it was very expensive and it did very bad. And I think this was after Pulp Fiction had already revitalized John Travolta's career, and then this pretty much solved it. It was really bad. It gave me some pretty serious insight into, John Travolta's God's writing ability and not good things. Am I upset that John Travolta doesn't have a career? No, because look up how he's treated his pilots. So, is it worth an F? For the sake of taking the mick out of Scientology by extension, I think sure. Enola Holmes. Millie Bobby Brown, Stranger Things, breakout star. Netflix found a child that they could really get behind. Phrasing. As I think I mentioned at the top of this, she just had a book come out. She was all the time talking about how this is my ghostwriter. Look at my ghostwriter. And, aren't ghostwriters supposed to be anonymous? I don't know. Anyway, Enola Holmes. Millie Bobby Brown was basically given a blank check to make a movie, and she made Enola Holmes. Ultimately, she made a second Enola Holmes. And to her credit, I haven't seen the second one, or I haven't seen all the second one, I don't think, but I've seen the first one, and it was decent. Henry Cavill has sort of the weirdest Sherlock Holmes thankless role I've ever seen, but short of that, it was a very decent, very well done movie. It wasn't an excellent movie, but it was entertaining. And for someone who had every opportunity to fall on her nose, it was just too easy for her to screw this up, and it was fine. Great. Happy. Was it a B? It's a B. I think it's a B. Good for her. Good for Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah, we'll see if she continues making movies for Netflix, because Netflix loves her because she makes people watch movies. This next one, I need to look it up, but it's a bunch of cast and crew on a bridge that's a railway bridge, so there's a train. And this movie never got finished, and it was our cautionary tale in film school, because it happened in 2014, and I went to film school in 2015. Midnight Rider. Fantastical documentary about a musician, I forget who it is. A short explanation of this story. The camera assistant died because they didn't get permission to film on the train tracks or on the bridge that they were on that had train tracks, because the train company had an active train going on it and hit the camera and bed, because they had a bed, because it was fantastical realism, at I think it was 48 miles an hour. It was licensed to go 75, I believe, or 65. 75? I don't know. It killed the camera assistant and hurt a bunch of people. They had tried to get permits. I think they were permitted for the location, but not the train tracks going through, because that was a company. Before filming the actual movie, they did a camera test where they brought cast and crew out. And I believe the producers told the cast and crew, it's all good. And they had a PA on lookout for a train in case the train was coming. The train was going so fast, the PA letting them know there was never going to be a chance to get out of the way in time, and it hit the bed and killed the camera assistant. I've said this a few times. Unless you're behind enemy lines or you're reporting on the war, filmmaking is not worth a death over. And there are still huge, massive filmmakers, directors, writers, producers, actors that are responsible for people's deaths today that are not in jail, and it's crazy. But these people, I think one of them went to jail and the other two are in probation, but this movie never got finished. It shouldn't get finished. It's unacceptable. The Vanity Project, yes, because it was a fantastical documentary, whatever the heck that is. Parallels, when you think about it, to what happened with Alec Baldwin on Rust, with Alna Hudgens getting shot by the gun, but that didn't seem like a Vanity Project. That just seemed like a really mishandled prop accident that should never have happened. I don't even think people know about this. I'm going to put it as a C. It's not worth B status. It's the cautionary tale. So, The Rum Diaries, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. This is where Johnny met Amber, and we know how that ended. Yeah, he was friends with the guy whose name escapes me, even before Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I believe. And so the guy had died before Johnny could get The Rum Diaries made, and I think the guy told him when he was dying, don't bother with The Rum Diaries, it's not worth it. Johnny still ended up making it, met Amber Heard, left his longtime girlfriend, and married Amber Heard, and ... I saw it. It wasn't very good. It was meandering and tedious, and one of these two actors is definitely a not very good actor, at least chemistry-wise, in this movie. So it didn't do anything for him. I'm giving it a C because it wasn't bad things, except I think if you were from the point of view of Johnny Depp, it was incredibly bad things. It's just, it would take a little time to find that out. Moving on, Don't Worry Darling, Olivia Wilde. This is her second movie to direct, but I'm still calling her not a director. And I'm talking about this movie especially. I've done a lot of material on my channel about Don't Worry Darling, but yeah, even if she had gone into this movie as a director, as an actor, as a producer, as a filmmaker, ultimately became, according to, rumors, tabloids, and all the other things, an opportunity to bang a rock star. While she should have been directing, it seems very much that she was off doing it with the dude from One Direction, Harry Styles. There are easier, less expensive, less crazy ways to bet a rock star. I'm taking the mick. I'm making fun. But I'm also like, the logic of it is just very strange to me. And the result is, it's an incredibly convoluted, fancy-looking movie that appears to be making sense And then you think about it and you go, actually, none of that makes sense. I've done a lot of material on it. I don't need to go deeper than that. But the fact that Olivia Wilde basically threw away her career on a career moving, like making project in order to bang dude. And then they're already broken up with, I'm pretty sure. So was it worth it? I'm being really hard on Olivia Wilde. I just feel bad because, again, she had the blank check. She had a freebie, just like Enola Holmes. She had everything going for her, and all she had to do was not drive the truck into the wall, and she just saw the wall coming and just got on the gas. It was just like, come on, man. So I'd say that's a C, only because it gave me a lot of material, and I'm grateful for that. Anyway, here we go. Here's Gal Gadot, and I believe Natalie Portman, and that appears to be Will Smith. This was the song heard round the world in the middle of that horrible time that we all socially experienced, the entire world. Gal Gadot thought it was a great idea to call all of her famous friends and harmonize Imagine, and it was a cultural phenomenon. It was so bad, and the smugness of their faces is what really... I remember seeing it like the day it came out, a couple hours after it came out, and going, this is incredible. This is perfect. This is what you expect from these kind of people, which sucks because I'm a fan of Will Ferrell. A lot of the people she had on there, I really like these people, but somehow they got talked into and or thought that this was their gift to the world in this critical moment. It's clearly Gal Gadot's face is indicating that. They were wrong. I'm giving it an A. It's not Taylor Swift status. It's just not. But that's something that we all, in 20 years, when you're hanging out with your kids and you're telling stories with your kids and you're really like, let me show you this video. It's going to be great. And then we got the guy from Growing Pains, Kirk Cameron, who since Growing Pains, but I think even during Growing Pains, very, very, very Christian, but not like I'm a Christian, that's my thing. It's like the crazy kind, the scary kind. And he farts out one of these movies every year, I think multiple, and they're all terrifying. This guy is absolutely scary. So this one is called, I believe, Homeschool Awakening. It's a placeholder. It's anything he's made in the last, 20 plus years. He's terrifying. Fortunately, he's really not in the mix, because if you're this out there, Hollywood's not going to interact with you, and that's pretty much what's happened. So I'm going to give it a C, because he's an extreme outlier of a thing that I inherently bristle against. I had to go through it as a kid. So yeah, it's kind of that. But he's definitely a more extreme version than anything I came across. I'm really glad for that. Anyway, moving on. Brie Larson, the same time Imagine was circulating, or thereabouts, decided to start a YouTube channel. The Captain Marvel, incredibly famous actress, decided it was time to get real. It was time to be real. I remember seeing her first couple videos right when they came out and being like, this is weird. And then I sort of forgot about it because I don't care. And obviously the internet has very strong feelings in both directions about Brie Larson. I don't really hold necessarily any of those feelings because I know her from, pre-Captain Marvel stuff. She was in The League, and then she was also in Scott Pilgrim, which is one of my all-times. She has a tendency to say some weird stuff publicly. The whole point of YouTube, the whole point of social media, but especially YouTube because it's video, is you're either relaying information or it's your personality, and you're making a connection with the internet, the YouTube of it all. And I guess she just needs somebody to write a character for her, because herself is so, like, there's other people like Christy Carlson Romano. I've been watching a bunch of her stuff because she has some really interesting like vlogs, but yeah, I don't know what Brie Larson was trying to accomplish with her YouTube channel, but it's still up because I checked, and it's just as weird, and it doesn't have much to it. It's every 15-year-old girl who she wants to be on YouTube, but she hasn't decided what it's going to be about yet. And Brie Larson's been doing this for 3 years. Most of the 15-year-old girls figure it out in like 6 months. And so I don't know what's going on there. It's weird. It hasn't done anything that's cost her a major career compared to the stuff she says publicly, I don't think. So anyway. Heckler, I have this DVD. When it came out, I bought it because I like stand-up. I was a huge fan of stand-up. That was the career I thought I wanted. Jamie Kennedy experiment. I don't know. I wish he would just have been the nerd from Scream, because he inspired an entire generation of filmmakers of my generation. And then his stand-up career, he made Heckler. It's a documentary. It's got everybody who's a huge name now. We're basically a huge name then, because he's that age. It's a stand-up documentary about criticism, and that's fine. And I agree with most of the points, except it's coming from Jamie Kennedy, whose most famous role to date is probably Son of the Mask. It would have worked if he had just recast himself in the documentary and focused on somebody else, honestly. It affected no one. I thought it was fine. It wasn't good, because it's Jamie Kennedy talking about it, and it's like, how can you possibly take that seriously? It's like Pauly Shore doing Heckler. Anyway, the last one. I watched it the other day. I had to pay for it. I heard it was on YouTube. YouTube purged it when they became Max. This is Halsey's concept movie. If I can't have love, I want power. And I watched it. It's still fresh in my mind, and I'm still not clear of what was actually. She got pregnant. She poisoned her king, and she got pregnant, and then she died. And I was reading the comments on it to try the reviews on it to try to figure out what she was trying to accomplish, and everybody was just very happy about all the bear skin and the pregnancy. I didn't get it. I like concept albums. I like movies and videos being companions to concept albums. So for that sake, I don't have a problem with it. It was 55 minutes. I regretted paying for it, but hey, I saw it and it's on here. Yeah, that's a solid C, I'd say. That's what it is. Happy days. Like, share, subscribe. Which ones did I miss? I definitely cherry picked, so I missed a bunch. Let me know below. What are your favorite celebrity vanity movies and TV projects? Catch you next time.